It's easily the biggest and most controversial topic being chatted about in Lebanon: water. To help clear up some of the information circling our community, Mayor Gentry, Lebanon Utilities General Manager Ed Basquill, and Wastewater Operations Manager Ryan Ottinger join us. Get the latest information on the city's current water situation right now.
Welcome to the Lebanon podcast, highlighting all the great things happening in Lebanon, Indiana. Have an idea for an episode? Send an email to lebanon@lebanon.in.gov.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 240 of our Love in Lebanon podcast. Joe LePage here, City of Lebanon Communications and Community Development Director. Pretty important topic on this episode, one that you definitely want to listen all the way to the end. We're talking water here on this episode of the podcast. So we've got a table full. We've moved from the small circular table to a larger rectangular one. We've got three guys here to chat more about our water situation here in Lebanon. We've got Lebanon Mayor Matt Gentry. We've got Ed Basquill, who is the Lebanon Utilities General Manager. And we've got Ryan Ottinger, who is the Wastewater Operations Manager. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Joe.
Thank you.
And much appreciated. And just full transparency, everybody, we want to be able to chat about some of the things we're seeing, hearing on social media, other platforms as well. Being able to meet and address those rumors just right as we hear them and kind of share information with you that you can hopefully talk to others about and be able to make an informed decision about the things that are happening within our community and the water that is heading into the Lebanon area as part of the LEAP project and the general growth of our Lebanon community as a whole. And so, guys, if you're okay with it, I jotted down some of the rumors that we've kind of seen in the past weeks and months and be able to kind of talk about those and hit them right as we've heard them.
Let's dive in, Joe.
Let's dive in. Pun intended. Ooh, probably not our last water pun, everybody. Just letting you know. So the first one, and one of the ones that I got to be honest, kind of made me sit up and kind of scratch my head and chuckle a little bit. Literally the LOL. Raw sewage coming from Lebanon being taken back into Eagle Creek. And before we hit record, kind of going over these things, Ryan, I think when you heard it, it was one of those where it was maybe a definition that kind of caught people off guard, and it was maybe a headline, or maybe Ed, you said it as well. But it's something they may have seen and kind of thought, wait, wastewater, that's a flush toilet into Eagle Creek.
The newspaper headline said wastewater going to Eagle Creek. And for us, the definition of wastewater is what you flush down the toilet and goes to the treatment plant. And to add confusion, the engineering term for the water going out of the plant, which is clean, regulated, treated water, is effluent. And that's not a word people normally use. But it's clean, regulated water. It looks about as clear as the water in this drinking bottle.
He's holding up a Culligan water that we've put here for a podcast guest. Yeah. But Ryan, if you can kind of help out, what goes into the process of taking the water and putting it back into Eagle Creek, returning it as part of this whole process?
Yeah, thank you. It's actually a water cycle. All the water we have on the earth is 100% been here the entire time, and that's all we're going to have. So, whether it comes out of a well or surface water, and it goes to the water plant, it's treated, comes into the homes, businesses throughout the community. After that, it is sent to the sewer lines as raw sewage. But once it comes to the wastewater treatment plant, it is treated through IDEM, through all of our capabilities, testing, monitoring, bacteria, everything that goes into that. Then it is able to go to a stream when it meets all the parameters of being classified as clean water. And the way it's designed is to improve the life of the stream, not have a negative impact wherever it is released. And that will be the case with the effluent line that does reach Eagle Creek. It will it'd be designed to improve the stream, not to create a negative impact.
So Ryan, I think something I learned early in my time as mayor is that kind of blew my mind. I never really thought about, but you literally could drink the water coming out of our wastewater treatment plant. It might be a little warm is what I was told, but literally it is potable. You could drink the water coming out of our treatment plant.
Yes, yeah. I am not going to volunteer to do that.
I'm not saying we could, but you could.
You absolutely can. Yeah, it's made to sustain life. It's made to have a positive impact on the stream. So, the aquatic life, the plants, and everything that go into that stream, we don't want to have a negative impact, and that's how it is designed. And if it doesn't meet those qualities, it stays in the treatment plant until it meets the qualities that we've established and that the Department of Environmental Management and the EPA have established for us.
Because we have both federal and state regulations that we have to require and meet.
Yes, and that's part of the Clean Water Act that we have to, and then IDEM has some more stringent than EPA. Whichever one is the most stringent, whether it's EPA or IDEM, that is what we are bound to. So if if an entity was to lessen the testing that goes on or lessen the quality and somebody else is higher than that or more stringent, then we would be bound by the most stringent that is placed in front of us.
And another thing that's kind of related, and this is, I hear this about the Lilly stuff, right, too. It's we even have rules on how the strength of waste that the industrial users send to our plant as well.
Our pretreatment program is very robust because we do make sure that they don't send us any things that we can't treat for in the plant. We do biological treatment, and part of when a new industry comes to town is there's a whole list of parameters, including heavy metals, like some of the things there have been rumors about, where they have to tell us what's going to be in their water. And we give them limits on that, so we don't make sure we don't put it to a stream. But Ryan's been closer to that. I'll let him add on to that. So.
Yeah, so we've been running a pretreatment program locally for over a decade now. So this is not industry coming in. Anything like that is not new to us. With the business park, we have so many different users, with Ken's Foods, they make Tide Pods out there at Montesol, and then you have some basic warehouses and stuff like that. So we have been very ahead of the curve on pretreatment. And basically what pretreatment means is that we have parameters that have to be met before any wastewater is allowed to enter our collection system or our sewer lines. So if they're not met just naturally as part of a business, a warehouse is going to meet those because they are just, basic restrooms and offices. But a food manufacturer or anything like that, they would have to meet more stringent pretreatment parameters. And it's a permitting process that goes through IDEM, and they are bound by that, and they will have to add any pretreatment equipment or methods that are deemed by IDEM or Lebanon Utilities. We can actually locally be more stringent than even IDEM if it will affect negatively our wastewater treatment plant or affect negatively anything that we release into the stream.
So I want to summarize what the three of you are saying. I think I got it right, and dumbing it down for myself, and maybe you two listening. So before it even leaves, whatever industry it is, it has to meet a standard before it even gets taken into our wastewater to be able to be taken back through an effluent line, wherever it's going to go after that, Eagle Creek or other, right? Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor?
absolutely. Yeah, and that's something I think the biggest thing, right, is people think, Lily's going to be making their medicines here, and they're just going to all their
Here, you take it.
Yeah, here you take it. Yeah. We're done with it. You guys take it. Mm-hmm. But that's not the case, right? They have, and even Lilly has stringent rules on them too, specifically just for the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry as well, of what they have to do federally, and then we have state regulations and then local regulations too, right? So there really are a lot of checkpoints. And a lot of parameters that they have to make sure that they're staying within those bounds, because we are there it is a water cycle, right? We are we live in this community. It's water we're drinking as well too, right? So it's something that we care about as well. And so we're not trying to let things slide by just because a company is doing it. So and there's a lot of checkpoints. Ryan and his team do a great job of ensuring that those are met all the time. There's Ryan, you got to sign a lot of forms to make sure that you're compliant. I've always heard if you get in trouble, you're the one going to jail over all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like Andy Dufresne, a little
yes,
Shawshank.
It is. There are a number of checkpoints to the mayor's point. The business themselves, a pharmaceutical company, for instance, is in its own category, and they're required to do daily monitoring of anything they release. And there is financial implications. They can be fined, and they can be shut down, and there can be criminal federal charges or at the state level with prison time included if they falsify that. Then once it goes into the system, we have checkpoints at our lift stations. We have a lift station that helps transport the water to the sewage to the wastewater treatment plant. If a company is out of balance or is sending us anything that is not within parameters, we can shut that lift station down to not allow it to make its way to the wastewater treatment plant. And then we have round-the-clock monitoring, automated monitoring, and lab work that is being done. So if we see something come in, then we can stop the flow from going to a stream until we can rectify that situation, ensuring that the problem stays within the plant or within the system and does not make its way to the stream. And so there's a number of high-level checkpoints that are put in specifically for this, so we don't have issues once we release it. We release high-quality, clean water when it leaves.
And if you didn't get the gist by now, everybody, you hopefully tell this is a thorough process, and there are a lot of different parameters that you have to go through to be able to have this regulated and being able to be able to be sent back and be able to be used again. So
I know it was kind of joking there, right? But I mean, it is a serious business.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And Ryan, and I applaud him and Ed and their whole team because it is critical, right? And this is an important thing, and they take their job extremely seriously. They do a great job for us, and frankly, I think we've done a lot to even continuing improving our system over the last decade or so, right? So we're constantly getting better with these things. I think we have great partnerships with our business community to ensure that they're meeting all those requirements and it's safe, and it's just the thing you have to count on as a community is your water is safe, and Ryan and his team ensure that happens.
And several of us are Lebanon residents, so we drink it as well.
And we do have, when it even goes to employees, there is a very strict certification process that goes into being a certified water or wastewater operator. The state passing success rate for water is less than 30%. For that test and that certification, and wastewater is below 20 at this time, and we have multiple certified operators. So when it goes through that process, they have to ensure that what they are sending out and what we are treating meets all the standards, or they could potentially not only lose their certification, but yes, jail time could be in there if so. It can't be a buddy system where, hey, I'll let this slide or anything like that, because their livelihood and potentially their freedom could be on the line if it's not taken very serious.
Completely understood.
Yeah, we have a lot of checks and balances, and one question we answered with the Eagle Creek that might come up is that it takes 24 hours once this treated water line is built, 24 hours for that water to get from our plant to Eagle Creek. It takes probably, depending on the flow rate, about that amount of time to get through the plant, and then there's time in the system, and there's tests and checkpoints all along the way. So if there was a problem at some manufacturing facility, we could isolate the lift station, we could find it in the collection system, we could put it in a reservoir in the plant. We have many things we can do in many different places. It's going to be tested to catch it. So
Gotcha.
We've got great partners in all the facilities that we monitor. But if we do have a bad actor, we do have the ability. We can shut their water off and cease any operation at that facility until they come into compliance. So we have a lot of teeth in our sewer use ordinance locally, and then IDEM supports anything like that. So there's a lot of ways that we can make sure that what we're sending out is safe and to all the parameters that are in front of us.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and Ryan and myself and the mayor, we all really care about the water. Like, I use Eagle Creek a lot. I go out there hiking. I got a hiking pass out there when the rowing club. I love it out there, and I wouldn't do anything to harm it. And I actually think that our plan here is going to help Eagle Creek. It's going to help it have more turnover in their water, and it's going to make it better. Because I know in the summers, sometimes they have to close it down because of water quality, because the water just sits when it's low.
Gotcha. And that kind of meets and kind of gets us into one of the other rumors that we've kind of heard and seen on the social media platforms out there. And again, everybody, you're listening to episode 240 of our 11 Lebanon podcast. Mayor Gentry, Ed Basquill, and also Ryan Ottinger, our guests here, talking Lebanon water. And speaking of water, into Eagle Creek, Ed, kind of even kind of talk about that a little bit. Heard recently that the fear is the water coming back through that effluent line, everybody, is too clean for the vegetation, for the animals, for everybody that may use, like yourself in the rowing club. Ryan, can you kind of talk about that and kind of the water quality that goes back to Eagle Creek and maybe some other municipalities that do the same thing as Lebanon will?
Yeah, there's a number of, in the Eagle Creek stream itself, there's at least 3 other municipalities that release to that makes its way to the reservoir. And so the clean water, it will be clean. It will be to the improve or maintain the quality of the entry point. So we go through a number of item permitting process. One of them is called the anti-degradation. And that is where the Lebanon Utilities has to prove through the permitting process that we are not going to have a negative impact on that stream. It's going to move slowly. So, you don't have, if you picture a garden hose and you put it right down on the ground, it just makes a big crater. But if you put your finger over that garden hose, it spreads it out and it doesn't impact the ground at all. And that's how that's going to go. It's going to cascade in. It'll be a nice water feature be very aesthetically pleasing. And as it goes in, it will be tested when it leaves our plant, but also then it will be tested at the point of entry to ensure that we're not putting anything negative into that stream. And then we'll also be disinfected at the plant with UV disinfection and disinfected before it enters the stream with UV disinfection and not chlorine. So we're not putting any chlorine into the reservoir or anything like that. UV is a light system that can disinfect without adding chemicals to that stream.
Nice. A lot of people use the UV lights during COVID, right? They were using that to kind of kill the viruses, bacteria, right? So kill all those.
Just on a much larger scale.
Exactly.
Yep. And I know, Mr. Mayor, that was something that was reassuring to me in talking with the folks at Citizens, and it was an education piece, to be honest, for me, the municipalities that also do what Lebanon is going to do, and the ones that are pretty close in proximity to Lebanon currently.
Yeah, I mean, both Whitestown and Zionsville, and I think Indianapolis, just parts of their system all discharge to Eagle Creek as well too, right? So it's not
this isn't new.
This isn't some spring-fed reservoir, right? It's already accepting clean treated wastewater effluent, right? So it already is. That's the purpose it serves, right? And it's a great thing, and it's frankly, Ed kind of highlighted how nice Eagle Creek is. Like it's pointed out that how good of a job that those communities are doing to treat that. And frankly, I mean, I think we're going to be one of the better actors in this, right? Because we're going to have the newest plant sitting in the water there. I mean, it's going to be the latest and greatest, make sure that everything is working perfectly. It's going to be certainly the most focus on it. I mean, I don't want to throw some stones here, but like I heard saw a story a couple weeks ago about a community that's also discharging Eagle Creek that's having troubles with their wastewater plant, right? So, I think the fact that we're going to have the newest plant of this, like we're not going to be the problem child in this situation. We'll help with probably more of the water balancing that people want to see. People always say, "Well, Eagle Creek's too low right now," or I think we'll be able to help with a lot of those factors because they'll have a very consistent flow from us coming from Lebanon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the one thing we need to touch on is quick background on why are we sending water to Eagle Creek Reservoir as opposed to releasing it to Prairie Creek.
Fair point, yeah.
And it's about watershed. We are taking water when we purchase water from Citizens. We're taking water out of the White River watershed. So if we, at peak down the road when everything's complete and we're withdrawing 25 million gallons a day from their system, if we put it back into the Prairie Creek effluent where we discharge now, then it would never make its way back to replenish the watershed that we're taking it
then
from.
Your water levels, you would be potentially worried in that way.
Yes, so that cycle would stop. They would be withdrawing water, but what they wouldn't be would be replenishing that. So what we're basically doing is replenishing the water that we take out back to their watershed so they can keep processing that. They have commitments to other communities, and we want to ensure that we're being good partners in that. If it were the other way around, that would be our expectation also. We would like to see as much of that come back to our watershed to continue to use it as possible. You don't want to see it as a water plant. You don't want to see it leave and then not have the potential to bring it back.
Because currently our water, we put in Prairie Creek, it goes to Sugar Creek, which then goes to the Wabash River. Right?
Correct.
So it's a different watershed than the White River. And Lebanon is a little unique, and frankly, probably why we have water problems is we kind of straddle two watersheds. If you look at the divide,
We're on the edge.
Because I think Fishback Creek, right down the old driving range golf course on there, right, that eventually makes its way down to Eagle Creek Reservoir, right? But Prairie Creek, just half a mile north of it, goes north, right? It goes to the Wabash, right? So that's kind of the imaginary line in the ground where the water flows.
And that's a great point. And one other reason why it's going to Eagle Creek Reservoir, we actually studied 7 different outfalls. So 7 different places that we could place this stream and get it back to that watershed. And there's some very close, like to the mayor's point, Fishback Creek's not that far down the road and would be much easier logistically for us to navigate.
But it doesn't go where you took it from.
Well, it does, except for when you add that kind of volume, you create potential damage downstream. You could create flooding. That stream, we would be the stream. And it just cannot handle that volume. So you have to, yes, logistically and on a map, it's not that far to get to that watershed. But to be able to do it safely without impacting downstream, the closest and easiest for us actually ended up being the reservoir, which doesn't seem close when you look at it on a map. But when you take in, the 100-year flood data and you take in the amount of volume that we're putting in, that creek, you see that creek in the summertime, it's not much of a creek. It's more of a ditch that has a small stream running through it. You add 25 million gallons a day to that, it's going to flood down the road because that creek is not designed and engineered to maintain that. It's just too small of a waterway. Also, we looked at other outlets in Eagle Creek, which is a much larger stream, but the environmental impacts that would take to get to that, to go through, you don't want to go through wetlands. You don't want to do damage to already existing in the environment. So we had to eliminate 6 of those 7, and this is the route that works best for the environment, for citizens, and for Lebanon utilities.
Yeah, and I could add on to that. It's challenging to explain this on a podcast without visuals. And last night
we'll be adding pictures on some of the graphics, everybody. So it's some of the things that Ed's going to talk about here.
Oh, awesome. Well, I just want to make the point that last night, January 21st, at our Lebanon Utility Service Board meeting, we had our team, and mainly Bob Holden, present the exact presentation we did at Eagle Creek. He kind of lays out chapter and verse exactly what Ryan was talking about. We're trying to be very transparent. One of the slides in there I like is we have all the dates where we had public meetings about this, describing exactly what we're going to do, inviting in the public. We have many other meetings where we talked about this. But good job on that, Ryan. But can I touch on clean water? You said a little bit. You said the water being too clean to go to Eagle Creek. That is one problem as water professionals we all have, because when someone says the water is too clean or too dirty, we measured maybe 100 different parameters. And how is it too clean? And I had just heard that, and the only time I've heard water being too clean is if hard water, like we have in Indiana, tastes good. So sometimes if somebody is using reverse osmosis process, that water can acquire taste very easily. So I don't know what they're saying. I would like the person that has that complaint to say why, but we're not using that process. We just have a biological treatment.
And to be honest, it's kind of a head scratcher for me, because in the industry I used to work in, you had to have 2 sources. And sadly with social media, you don't even really need one. It's kind of what you're thinking. And so these are the things that we've seen in the past and regarding water for what's coming into Lebanon or leaving Lebanon. So that's why bringing it up is kind of bizarre there.
Yeah, and clean is sort of a relative term. Because visually, it could be clear, and visually it is clean, but it does have the appropriate nutrients and bacteria to support being released to a stream. So that's what's important is, when we look at water being treated, we don't look at it in a glass, we look at it through a microscope. And we get down to the bacteria and microscopic levels to ensure that when it gets there, it will improve. It's not going to have a negative impact and create algae per se, or add anything negative to that stream. So we look at clean water visually, yes, but we also look at it all the way down to a microscopic level to make sure that the positives stay in the water and the negatives come out in order to create life in that stream. That's
a good point. The third thing that I've heard and seen on social media is something I got a text early morning on Thanksgiving after a news piece was shared talking about the citizens pipeline and a gentleman's property that was being stolen or something along those lines. And very good reporter, award-winning reporter, did the story, and a very upset resident is the one that sent it to me, and it's someone we know within the room here. Mayor, can you kind of talk about it all dealt with right-of-way and being able to have the citizens line that's coming through, and it's part of the process. Can't maybe not speak specifically because it's citizens and it's not Lebanon specific in this matter, but if you can kind of enlighten us on how right-of-way is going on now. I heard in the last Board of Works meeting, Kevin Krulik, our city engineer, talking about negotiating rights-of-way for a project that's happening out on Witt Road, things along those lines. How is that typically done? And not speaking to this specifically with the citizens project, but how is it typically done in a municipality?
Yeah, so right-of-way, it's a process, and it's a very formalized legal process. And essentially, for a city or utility, because Citizens has right-of-way authority as well, or eminent domain authority, in order to obtain right-of-way, it has to be for a public purpose. And so I think that's a big misconception I think the biggest misconception, one, is that they're just taking the property from someone. Property owners are always compensated, whether they have to come to an agreement on price, or there has to be more of the form or more of the legal process where there ends up being a condemnation and then eminent domain and all the process. At the end of the day, though, right, there's always a compensation to the property owner. But again, you have to have the reason for it's a public purpose, right? So, if I wanted to, trying to come up with a scenario here. If I were to extend my driveway, right, or something, and I wanted to go through my neighbor's field, you can't do that, right? Because you're a private individual, right? As an individual, you don't have eminent domain authority. But if there was a road that needed to be widened, so they could add sidewalks and curb and gutter and or utility lines, right? That's a public purpose, right? That serves the public good. So there is a process that the utilities or a city could go through to start that process and do that. It's never something that you try to avoid that at all costs, right? And I think for our pipeline project, right, we started conversations very, very early in that process. So those are conversations that always happen. Every utility is going to do it a little differently, so I can't speak to how Citizens does theirs. But I would say we always try to work with the property owner to find what is a fair price, what is compensates them for that, but also understanding that there is a bigger goal and there's a public purpose being served by the acquisition of that. So, a lot of times people are compensated if trees have to be taken down, they're compensated for the trees. There's a lot of things that go into how they calculate that value, but it's a very fair process. Again, it's something that as a city we try not to exercise, unless you absolutely have to do it. And again, the water system, because I heard a lot too, right? This is for a private users. This is, just for Lilly and for Meta. This isn't for the public. It's not it's not a legal use of eminent domain. The water is coming to the city of Lebanon, right? It's coming to the city of Lebanon utilities. That's the public entity, right? Because all of this, some of this water will go to residents and businesses and things that will come here. It's not just LEAP, right? If they're right, if it was just a pipeline water just to the LEAP district and only Lilly and Meta could use it, that wouldn't be allowed, right? But this is part of a larger water supply to the entire city of Lebanon. Yes, we'll use a portion of that to serve LEAP, but it's also serving other users too, right? And that's why we've been going through all these discussions of pre-allocation agreements. We can get into that if you want to, but this is not just about LEAP; it's about the entire city of Lebanon's water and wastewater future.
Well, that transitions well because in a recent communications meeting, our planning director Ben Bontrager talking about Parkview and the reallocation that was just granted to them, and also there's a couple different new residential neighborhoods that are looking to come online, and some filed some paperwork and had some initial conversations. Going to look for that pre-allocation agreement as well. Yep. So these are part of this is serving the greater public that fits the not just for the private user.
So when we had Lilly come in, we were able to serve their first phase one. We had a water available for them. We could do it, and the way it works in our system, Ed, you could maybe touch on this too, but essentially, we put people's names on gallons of water in our tank, right? So every home in town, we assume uses 500 gallons of water a day. They don't. If you look at your utility bill and calculate cubic feet to gallons, I promise you're probably not using 500 gallons of water a day. But that's the assumption we make. So in our system, we have a maximum pull. And so we kind of break that up into thousands of different little allocations. So the issue became, obviously, as Lilly came in with phase 2 and then Meta came in as well, the demand to allocate that water, was exceeded by those demands. And so what we essentially have happened now is, because of the long construction lead time on these projects, and obviously with this agreement now with Citizens, that's part of why we paused development for a while, because we wanted to make sure we had a really good handle on how water to allocated, making sure we had enough. Because the biggest fear that Ryan and myself probably ever have is someone goes to turn on their water faucet in their bathroom and water doesn't come out. Right? That's not acceptable. That can never happen. So we have to make sure we always have water for people that when they need it. And so that's something that with these pre-allocation agreements, we're essentially allowing projects to get a portion of future water that will be here, and wastewater as well, because we know this is all coming, right? All these are being planned, built, designed, where we have very specific timelines and dates. So essentially, these pre-allocation of water agreements allow them to go forward with their plans, start building because it can take them 18 months, 24 months, 2 years, whatever it is, to actually build the facility. So by the time the facility is built, all of the water and wastewater needs will be there. And so that's something that we try to work through as just to kind of streamline the process and ensure that we were kind of able to let everything kind of go again and start, because by the time that they will be built, the water and the wastewater infrastructure will be here to serve them.
Dumb question, guys. If there's the water is not here yet, that project doesn't happen, that project gets put on hold, you water experts in the room?
So part of the agreement is that upon water being received from Citizens as part of the project, then it will become available to the user. So we do have that in there. However, we don't want to jinx it. Right now, we are perfectly on schedule to meet the first deadline of January 1st, 2027, and we plan on continuing to be on schedule to have that water ready to turn on. But if in the event that it is not ready by then, part of the agreement is that it is not going to be available. They cannot turn on their faucets until we can add the water to the system. And exactly to the mayor's point, because what we don't want to do is have growth negatively impact current users. And the way this is all set up is this benefits current users with this expansion of our water system, and to the point to where we are going to essentially double our capacity. Right now, we are able to treat 4.6 million gallons of water a day. And when this is all said and done, we will be able to serve 9.6 million gallons a day at no cost to the civil ratepayers. And I think that is a huge benefit for a community that is kind of in an island when it comes to available water. We've done millions of dollars worth of testing throughout Boone County, and there's been studies that date back to the early 70s about a possible reservoir. And by the way, if that would have went through, the permitting would not be done yet. That's how long it takes to get something like that done. So we've exhausted all of our options in Lebanon, and so we had two options. We could stay at 4.6 million, and the community would no longer be able to grow to ensure that current residents have the available water that they need, or we could work with a different entity. And we talked to multiple entities, and we've been talking to Citizens about this for well over a decade.
Yeah,
so this is not a new idea. We've reached out to communities in the north, to the east, to the west to see if anything was viable. But if any of that would have happened before this, that cost would have unfortunately had to go on to the ratepayers to bear the brunt of that construction and to bring that water here. So this is a massive win, not only for Lebanon as far as bringing in Eli Lilly's and the Metas of the world, but it's a win for the civil district that will allow homes to be built, much needed homes. My first year in my role, I had 5 housing permits. And a good problem to have. It was. I thought I had the easiest job in the world. Now there's weeks where we average 6 or 7 a week, and it's just continuing to grow, and that just speaks to the community that we have and the growth that is needed for us to maintain that community. We have to have homes, we have to have small businesses, and we have to have people shop and go to restaurants. We can't just have buildings where people are leaving the county and leaving the community and not taking part and buying in, and this allows that to continue.
Yeah, let me add on that how Ryan got to the 9.6 MGD, if people are doing the math, as we're looking at 5 MGD going to the Lebanon Civil District that is outside the LEAP. And the one, great explanations by the mayor and Ryan, but the one overriding principle is that growth pays for growth. None of our existing ratepayers outside of LEAP are paying for this. And that's the whole philosophy behind the pre-allocation agreements and the capacity agreements, because someone is paying a capacity fee, usually a developer, where they're pretty much buying into the system as if we were a company and they're buying the stock, or as if we were a country club and we're paying that entry fee. I don't like the country club example because it makes us sound like we're like,
Well, to touch
blue collar, not blue collar or something. But
just a pre-allocation agreement, basically an entity that would want to come in, they will meet with planning and zoning, they meet with Lebanon Utilities and say, hey, we are looking to be online in 2028, let's say. And then they would sign a pre-allocation agreement with a 10% refundable deposit. So if something on their end does not work out the way it's supposed to, they're not out any money. But basically what that contract does is it holds their place in line. So you can't have someone come in that's just a massive user and say, I want all the rest of the water that's in Lebanon. And then all these people who are, in the middle of building a housing addition now don't have any. And that's what we're assuring, is that you put your 10% deposit down and you stake your place in line. And then once that water is delivered, then you pay the rest of your availability fees then we can turn the water on. Or if you say, hey, we're not ready, then you just slide down the line and, people can move ahead of you, but it's based on when that allocate, and that goes through Utility Service Board approval and also City Council approval. So we make sure that we have a very robust data center that we keep moving on this and keep updating to ensure that no more water is going out than what we can allocate and what we can provide during that year.
I want to circle back on to what Ryan was talking about earlier. My first, my predecessor, Mayor Lewis, I remembered him seeing him going to water meetings, talking about Central Indiana water supply. And I kind of didn't really understand what's going on with this, right? And then, my first year in office, obviously as mayor, I'm kind of, if you're drinking from a fire hose, another water pump for you. Yep. But water quickly became this is a huge problem for Lebanon. Because I never really thought about water basins and all these issues, and but I started to realize the depth and the challenge of this problem. And so, in those early discussions we were having with citizens that had kind of started before me, but kind of got more formalized during my first couple of years, we projected, we had our financial advisor kind of run the numbers. It would have caused essentially a 50 to 100% increase in your water bill, right? So if your water bill is $30 today, it might have been $45 or $60 a month, right? And so I think that's something that's not talked about enough too, is because of LEAP and because of all of this infrastructure that's coming here, we're able to essentially provide those savings to residents, because if that's in these times, right? Having your water bill going from $30 to $45 or to $60, that'd be a huge hit for people, right? And paying that every month. So I really think that we've really been able to provide a huge benefit, getting away from all the property taxes and the job opportunities, all those things that those companies will pay. But just from a water impact standpoint, that's been a huge benefit to the resident, that every resident of Lebanon will see.
Yeah. And just to reiterate, everybody, the pre-allocation agreement is not, to use the Parkview example, Parkview is ready to open their doors and the water's not here yet. They're not taking your water to sacrifice for their project until the water that is currently coming our way is officially here. And so, Ryan, can you kind of give us an update on, you kind of mentioned the timeline a little bit, how things are right on schedule? Things are right on schedule?
Yep, they are. So in 2027, our commitment is to deliver 2 more million gallon a day on top of what we already have, our 4.6 million. That will be in purchased water from citizens, and we are on schedule for that right now. Kokosing Industrial, you'll see them along with many other construction opportunities out on State Road 32. We have part of the pedestal for our new 2 million gallon water storage tower. It'd be the exact same design as the Whitestown water storage facility at 267 and 65, for an example, or for to show what that will look like. But the benefit of this also is we're able to create a pressure zone, which is not talked about a lot. Some of these larger industries, our average pressure coming into a house is between 45 and 55 psi. We're going to bring it in at about 75 psi. I would not recommend taking a shower in 75 psi, but for large buildings that need, when you've got hundreds of thousands of square feet, you need large pressure, or to operate equipment in those buildings, you need a lot of pressure. So we're actually engineering it to be higher pressure in that area, but also be connected to our system to be able to use it in our system. We are going through the preliminary engineering report for phase 2, and that will bring an additional 8 million gallons a day. And then ultimately we'll end up, and that will be January 1st of 2028 when that will be delivered. So that's going to be, we're getting ready to get started on that real soon. And then by the time it's all said and done, January 1st of 2031, we will have a peak flow capacity of an additional 25 million gallons of water a day. And to Ed's point, 5 million of that is carved out for the civil district on its own. So if LEAP continues to grow, which we know it will, they can't come in. They're not going to come in and say, actually, all of that's ours. We want it back. It's going to be memorialized, and we will have access to that water and make sure that the civil district still benefits from that.
Gotcha. Now, you threw around a lot of dates, a lot of facts and figures. Everybody, as we're taping this, we're recording this podcast. Last night at the Lebanon Utilities meeting, you guys went into even more depth with visuals, and that information is on the YouTube channel for Lebanon Utilities, and it can be accessed there for folks to see if they want to get there, all the dates and things, Ed?
Yes, sir. We did a presentation. It's about 35 minutes long. It was on our meeting last night, and you can get all those dates and figures there and more.
On our website also, we have the engineering reports for water, wastewater, and those are pretty robust, 500 some odd pages. It does help if you're not tired. Maybe drink it. Well, if you're going to read that entire thing, grab a cup of coffee. But we also put a summary on there. It's just got high level stuff, financing, dates, deadlines, information like that. So you can access that on our webpage also.
So bringing it back to our social media, maybe some of the education that has taken place, and hopefully a tongue-in-cheek fashion, we've been able to get some answers to some things we've seen on social. Before they hit the socials, they can maybe read the summary and get actual information about this project before hitting the keyboard?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We have a projects tab on our homepage, and then you can pick water or wastewater, and then there's also an email. It's WaterWastewaterProjects at Lebanon-utilities.com. So if you have any specific questions that you'd like to have answered, it all gets funneled through us. If it's a question about Citizens Project, we will send that on to Citizens email that they have established, and vice versa. So if a community member in the Citizens area has a question about ours, we're able to answer that, and we have pretty timely responses on that. So I would encourage to go to the website, take a look at that summary. It really breaks it down to a pretty user-friendly level.
And everybody, the URL, the site that Ryan is referencing, we'll put that in the body of the podcast along with the email address too. And Mayor, when you sat down with a representative from Citizens, I think it was the last time we chatted water specific, I think, Citizens outlined, and that's where we kind of unveiled. They have a whole webpage devoted to the Lebanon project to know where the heck the water's coming from and how this whole thing happens.
Yeah, Citizens' system is a little bit more complex than ours, fair to say.
It's bigger.
Obviously much bigger. They're served in Indianapolis and I think 9 other communities around central Indiana. So a lot of similar communities in our situation as well too that are buying water from Citizens. So it's not unheard of at all. But they have multiple different treatment centers, water, wastewater both. They have multiple reservoirs. They're moving water around to serve all their customers, right? So they and because frankly to get the water to us, they had to do multiple upgrades in their system to be able to move it. So we're doing work on our end to make sure we can receive it and move it around, but they're also doing the same thing on their side as well too. So they have a massive investment on their side as well to make the upgrades at their plants and their wells and all the things that they're doing. So they've laid it all out on their website as well too, so you can see both sides of the coin, so to speak.
Fantastic. Everybody, this is not the last time we're going to chat water. We want to be able to have this table reassembled on a fairly regular basis. Hopefully you guys are okay with that. Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode. Guys, Ryan, Ed, Mr. Mayor, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, everybody. More episodes coming your way. Take care.